Welcome back to Hong Kong Headlines. This year we witnessed a deal on Post 97's highest court, but things sank to an all-time low afterwards. The PwC announced its plans to water down the Bill of Rights, while transitional matters were still unresolved.
But the bill's future wasn't the only thing in question. After rejecting an equal opportunities bill, many wondered about the Hong Kong government's commitment in safeguarding civil liberties.
More than a decade after Britain and China agreed on the territory's highest court for Post 97, the jury is still out on how and when the bench should be set up. The court's flexibility is at issue, with only one overseas judge being allowed to sit on the bench.
The PwC lays out its own plan on setting up the bench.
把终审法院的筹组工作交由特别行政区的后任班子来负责，是顺理成章的。
Reasonable or not, time is running out, along with patience.
Do we or do we not want a CFA set up before 1997?
A deal is struck. Britain gives up its demands for the bench to be set up by then, along with the court bill to cover acts of state under British common law.
Now, here is an agreement that we've reached with the Chinese side, which gives Hong Kong continuity in its legal system and gives it a court of final appeal after 1997, whose jurisdiction would be decided by this Legislative Council.
But many charge Britain of selling out.
You have replaced what you call a legal vacuum with a big legal hole.
But the court's credibility isn't the only item in question.
Mr. Chris Patten, he has betrayed his principles, he has let down the people.
That the reason why they keep on saying things about the Court of Final Appeal bill, which are so damagingly wrong, is that they're so rarely in the chamber to actually discuss the issue with the governor.
What is discussed, at least between Britain and China, is stepping up relations.
Overall, I think that both United Kingdom and China are working together very closely.
Both sides shake hands to deals which include improving contacts between Hong Kong and mainland officials. The others, some believe, are purely ceremonial.
Issues concerning passports and the right of abode are unresolved. And the most pressing question, will 1997 also mean the handover of civil rights?
It has bedded down extremely well and has been interpreted sensibly by the courts. It provides reassurance. Why tamper with it?
The government tells China hands off on the Bill of Rights, a law established in 1991 to restore confidence in Hong Kong after the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989.
Outrage erupts over the PwC's plans to water down the 23-article law.
We have to protect Hong Kong people's rights. This is the minimum.
We certainly hope that the Chinese government will stop interfering with the local administration.
But China insists it's the Bill of Rights that's an interference.
人权法案它这个一个核心问题呢，就是它呢这个凌驾地位所以呢这个不应该这个有任何法律要凌驾于基本法之上。
After 4 hours of debating, the Council votes overwhelmingly to officially denounce the PwC's proposals, but some views are made privately.
梁铁良先生呢，都当面给我讲过，他认为确实是破坏了香港的法律体系的。至于说他后来那天表态我说我理解他的立场，也理解他的处境。
Those comments set off a controversy around Chief Justice Sir T.L. Yang's judgment and Hong Kong's legal system.
The conversation that has caused me all this trouble took place at a dinner party with 2 tables. There were some 24 people there. Mr. Zhang Chun-san sat on my left. To his left was another gentleman who asked me about the Bill of Rights, as I was asked about the Bill of Rights practically every time I went out, and we talked about the Bill of Rights.
Public or private, it's the big picture most are looking at. Many wonder just how human rights are to be protected and reported after the territory's return to Chinese sovereignty.
呢啲完全係中國政府嘅內政。
Not so, says the United Nations. It demands China file reports on Hong Kong's civil rights situation after '97. But Beijing rejects the request, saying it's not a signatory to the UN's Covenant on Human Rights.
The Hong Kong government, meanwhile, puts on a brave face.
China's adherence to international law is well known, and I see no ground for pessimism.
But many in the territory do. The harsh 14-year sentence handed down to Chinese dissident Wei Jinsheng is denounced by the West and here at home.
It's not very surprising that an event like the sentencing of Mr. Wei yesterday causes further concern in the community because people understandably worry about how substantial our protections, their protections are after 1997.
China prepares for the preparatory committee to be set up next month. Few critics and no Democratic Party members are on the team, leaving many wondering how representative the committee will be, especially on issues such as freedoms and rights protection.
One item both sides shake hands on is getting Chek Lap Kok off the ground. The airport authority is set up to make sure Chek Lap Kok opens on time.
But the celebrations are limited, since other transitional matters are undecided.
Sometimes these things take a little longer than one might expect, but I'm confident that we will reach agreement.
For Hong Kongers, an airport is no good if you can't travel. The eligibility of a SAR passport is in doubt, with the territory's nationality and right of abode issue still up in the air.
And visa-free travel for SAR passport holders is uncertain. London stays non-committal until it knows for sure the issuing of passports won't be abused. The granting of a Chinese passport to local Hong Kong advisor Lo Tak Sing underlines the concerns.
It wasn't easy to get a Chinese passport because I wasn't sure how to go about it.
Others aren't sure too, since Hong Kongers aren't supposed to be eligible for the document. The exception causes worries of future abuse.
I think that a British passport should be about more than helping you to travel comfortably around the world. And I think that those who qualify for a BDTC passport, for a British passport, should be qualifying for something that, if necessary, gives them the right of abode.
That argument annoys London and Beijing, since the immigration issue is a wary one for both parties.
偏偏呢，要来做一番表演，这是一种不诚实的。
And the right to information is also debated, as China tries to get more data on civil servants.
What more does anyone want?
所有的资料、所有的财产、一切的东西都应该先交给中央人民政府。
Uncertainty looms over Hong Kong's largest workforce, while a number of senior civil servants decide to call it quits.
I shall do my best to ensure that I leave a very clean and comfortable chair to my successor.
I'm not worried about the change in politics or change in vertical.
If I were really concerned about my future and settling of accounts, well, then I should not be joining the PDC.
This was the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. Hong Kong is where I was born and where I belong.
这无疑将对保持公务员队伍的稳定性带来很大的冲击，是一个应该引起人们高度重视的问题。
In an unprecedented move, China's Vice Premier of the Public Security Bureau meets the heads of Hong Kong's 5 disciplinary services.
By calling all those serving in the force to continue the service beyond 1997. Personally, I feel it is a very positive statement.
For the majority of the civil service,
Anson Chan secretly visits Beijing.
Both Vice Premier Chen and Director Liu were at pains to reassure me about the importance they attached to the civil service, their desire to see continuity within the civil service.
Britain and China gear up for enhancing contacts between civil servants and their mainland counterparts.
The two sides hold an unprecedented meeting in Happy Valley.
我们希望18万公务员，除了 基本法规定的20几位主要官员需要做一些符合基本法的安排以外，其他的公务员在原来的岗位上继续留用。
But it seems good relations are hard to cultivate within the civil service as Hong Kong's localization goes into top gear.
Expatriate civil servants lose their 4-year fight against localization. The High Court ruling the demotion of the expatriate government workers is justified for the sake of promoting good relations with local staff.
How can you balance the law on the one hand with a deterioration in morale on the other?
And China tries to boost a different kind of morale. The foreign minister outlines Beijing's position on the future of ties between Taiwan and the territory. The ground rules: Taiwan can keep its contacts with Hong Kong as long as those ties are based on the one country, two systems concept.
But old wounds are difficult to heal as hundreds celebrate Taiwan's National Day in the territory.
新華社咧係好反對咧，係今年仲會有掛國旗同埋慶祝國慶嘅活動。佢認為係搞緊一國兩制。
But as inevitable as Hong Kong's handover, KMT devotees are to face an eventual shift in allegiance, an allegiance that may stop their time-honored practice. For many, though, it's not the tradition, but the faith that keeps them going.
奇怪唔怪，一個唔係問題，其實喺個心度啫。
Coming up, out of work in Hong Kong, a record number in the unemployment lines.
And the tug of war over welfare. Is Hong Kong spending too much?